Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new Star Rail theory and speculation video. Today, I want to speculate on how the story of the Xianzhou will continue in version 2.5. Things are heating up between the Borisin and the Arbiter-Generals, so I want to discuss what we could see happen next. Now, this video does contain spoilers for the quests listed on screen now, so if you haven't done those, you have been warned. With all that said though, let's get right into the video. Starting with the Borisin, they were shown to be the main antagonist group during the first part of Finest Duel Under the Pristine Blue. Borisins from the Sableclaw and Eclipse packs led by Moktok of the Rhinohound pack were able to sneak aboard the Xianzhou Luofu as part of their plan to free the legendary warhead Hulei from the Luofu's shackling prison. Their infiltration went mostly unnoticed as the Borisins were disguised as Foxians. Now, the Borisin don't have shapeshifting powers. In order to take on these forms, they use special pills given to them by an entity known as Mangus. This mysterious Mangus is actually Lord Ravager Phantilia, who the Luofu has dealt with before. After her defeat at Scalegorge Waterscape, she began organizing Borisin groups into larger packs. She is using them to bring destruction to the Luofu and the Xianzhou Alliance as a whole. As shown in the story, the Borisin were successfully able to infiltrate the Luofu's shackling prison and free Hulei. Zhuiyi's ingenium body would be broken beyond repair, but her spirit would soon move to a new one. Zhao Chua would be taken as slave by Hulei, only surviving by mentioning Jing Liu's recent visit to the Luofu. Hulei and the other Borisin would escape the shackling prison before the gates could close, and that's where 2.4 left off with their story. In version 2.5, a confrontation against Hulei seems inevitable. They seem to be setting him up as the main antagonist for the storyline, and he could even end up being a weekly boss. We will have to stop him from escaping the Luofu, while also saving Zhao Chua in the process. He is currently still on the Luofu, but we likely don't have too much time left to stop him. In combat, Hulei would be incredibly powerful. After all, only Jing Liu was able to defeat him and imprison him in the shackling prison. This time though, there are 3 Arbiter-Generals aboard the Luofu, so we do have strength on our side. I don't really see Hui Yan fighting, but Jing Yuan and Fei Xiao definitely could. The question is though, will Hulei survive in version 2.5? Throughout the 2.4 Trailblaze continuance, it was made clear that Hulei is incredibly hard to kill. The Forest of Swords, which is said to kill other Borisin in less than 3 days, failed to kill him during the 700 years he remained in the shackling prison. As such, his fate is still up in the air. The first possibility is that Hulei does manage to survive and escape from the Luofu, but at a great cost to the Borisin as a whole. The Xianzhou Alliance would now know of their plans, and it would allow the Alliance to take action against the Borisin and even Phantilia much sooner. The second possibility is that Hulei does manage to survive, but gets captured and transferred to the Xianzhou Yaoqing. This would make the Borisins more afraid, as their great warhead Hulei would be captured once again. The Arbiter-Generals could successfully defeat Hulei, and maybe even Jing Liu could make a return. This would also allow Zhao Chua to try and use Hulei's blood to help save Fei Xiao from her illness. The third and final possibility is that Hulei does not manage to survive. He would either be killed by an Arbiter-General or Jing Liu. However, I don't think Jing Liu will return to the Luofu at the moment, as she still needs to stand trial. Either way, this last possibility would definitely make the Borisins fearful of the Xianzhou Alliance. They could even turn against Phantilia, as her plan would have led to Hulei being killed. As such, Phantilia would have to retreat for now to work on a new plan, potentially even wiping out a good amount of the Borisin for betraying her. Moving on though, I want to talk a bit more about the Arbiter-Generals. Currently, there are 3 Arbiter-Generals aboard the Luofu: Jing Yuan of the Xianzhou Luofu, Fei Xiao of the Xianzhou Yaoqing, and Hui Yan of the Xianzhou Juming. While the latter 2 claim to be there for the Wardance, they have other reasons too. Both Fei Xiao and Hui Yan were sent to the Luofu by Marshal Hua in order to learn more about what happened during the recent Ambrosial Arbor crisis. they are able to learn more about Phantilia's role in the Ambrosial Arbor's revival, while also revealing that she is behind the return of the Borisin. As I suggested earlier, the Arbiter-Generals themselves could definitely fight against the Borisin. Fei Xiao may especially want to fight, as she is a Foxian. The Foxians and the Borisin have been enemies for a very long time after all. Fei Xiao would probably love to get the chance to defeat Hulei once and for all. A fight between these two would allow us to see what Fei Xiao is truly capable of beyond her abilities as a playable character. We would also get to see her spirit summon, or her version of Jingyuan's Lightning Lord. Jingyuan could also help her out in this fight, meaning we would have two Arbiter-Generals fighting against the Borisin. Two Arbiter-Generals fighting together would surely be a sight to behold, and it could be similar to the cutscene in Enna's Dream with Jingyuan and Dan Heng. As for Huiyan, he likely won't fight due to his advanced age. Still, I think he could give us some hints about the future, which I'll discuss more later on. Now then, the Wardance is the main event of this new storyline. It is a festival held in honor of the Rainbow Arbiter and the Cloud Knights who fought against the Abominations of Abundance. This festival consists mainly of martial contests, and the Astral Express crew was personally invited to attend. March 7th has even begun training to learn swordplay under Yanqing and Yun Li, so she is really getting into the festive mood. Since we were invited to attend, there is definitely room for other people from across the cosmos to join as well. We already know that people from other Xianzhou ships are on the Luofu for the Wardance, mainly from the Yaoqing and the Juming. However, they are not the only ones. During Yun Li's companion mission, we actually run into Argenti on the Luofu. While his primary purpose in being here wasn't for the Wardance, he could still definitely take part. Other playable characters could definitely make an appearance as well, including some of the 10 Stonehearts. Perhaps we will get another tease for the next Stoneheart that will meet during this event. Now, the Wardance could also be threatened by Hulei and his recent escape from the Shackling prison. I think the Wardance could be where everything comes together, with a final fight against Hulei becoming part of the event. If more people come from across the cosmos, we will have a better chance at taking him down. In fact, the Arbiter-Generals may even want Hulei to try and disrupt the Wardance. That way, when they defeat him, it would show the cosmos that the Xianzhou Alliance is still strong and ready to take down any threat. It would also prove the validity of their recent claims, which would allow them to gain more allies for any upcoming conflicts. With this, the Alliance would definitely have an advantage over Phantilia and the destruction as a whole. Basically, the Alliance would take this terrible situation and make the very best out of it. One of the most mysterious parts of the 2.4 Trailblaze continuance was Ruan Mei. While she didn't appear during the quest, she was mentioned a few times by different characters. She was first mentioned by Himiko, saying she and Welt were going to deliver some Leviathan fossils from Kalenga Abyss to Ruan Mei. Later on, she was mentioned by Fei Xiao while she was talking to Yukong. Starting with the first mention, the Leviathan fossils are certainly interesting. After all, Ruan Mei has a fascination with life, so she may want to use these fossils for a new experiment. Whatever she ends up creating could be even more powerful than what we've seen her make in the past. Leviathan fossils do hold a great amount of power, and they are even used to create doomsday beasts. However, this isn't the most interesting Ruan Mei mentioned to me. When Fei Xiao mentioned her name to Yukong, it was in response to something the latter had asked the former for. Fei Xiao explained how the Verdant Knights discovered the wreckage of the Whistling Flame ship with no survivors and no cargo. Someone had been on the scene before they arrived though, Ruan Mei herself. At first, I was a bit confused by this mention, but then I decided to look up Whistling Flames. It didn't take long for me to realize that this name was referring to the Whistling Flames Guild of the Skyfaring Commission on the Luofu. Even more interesting, the Whistling Flames Guild just so happens to be the guild that Ting Yun belonged to. As such, the initial destruction of the ship could have been caused by Phantilia herself. She could have possessed Ting Yun and returned to the Luofu before enacting her plans as we saw. Of course, Ting Yun would still be killed during the Luofu Trailblaze missions by Phantilia. However, Fei Xiao did say all of this after saying there might be a silver lining to all the bad news, so there could be a positive side to this too. That positive side would come to us through none other than Ruan Mei. Since she is known to make and recreate life, what if she could revive Ting Yun? Perhaps she could use some of Ting Yun's DNA recovered from the wreckage, as well as the Leviathan fossils from Himiko and Welt, to make this happen. Alternatively, she could have recovered Ting Yun's actual body. Phantilia would have just made a copy of the body to infiltrate the Luofu with. However, Phantilia is a Heliobus, and Heliobi possess their hosts. The Ting Yun we met on the Luofu was likely the real one, just possessed. Currently, there are a lot of questions surrounding Ruan Mei and this plotline. I really hope some of our questions regarding this storyline will be answered in version 2.5, but it feels like it might go beyond that. At this point, they might just be teasing us with these mentions, and we'll just have to wait for the answers. As I said, that storyline could end up extending beyond version 2.5. We could learn more about Ruan Mei's plans during this version, but we won't see them come into play until a later update. Perhaps during version 2.6, we could make a return to her to Space Station, which would be where the storyline continues. We could even see Ting Yun be brought back, which I think would be really cool. Other than that, there are a wide number of stories that could be set up here, including future trips to the Xianzhou and their other flagships. First off, we could get some hints about what Phantilia wants to do next. In my video on the Xianzhou Juming earlier this week, I speculated that her plans revolve around the plague marks of the Xianzhou Alliance. Her first plan involved the revival of the Ambrosial Arbor, which is the plague mark of the Luofu. Her current plan involves the Borisin, whose moon rage state could be tied to the Yao Qing's plague mark, the lunar embryo. Therefore, her next plan could involve the primordial fire, the plague mark of the Zhu Ming. This plague mark is also known as the Flint Emperor, leader of the Heliobi, which I think could lead to a very interesting storyline. In fact, our destination after Amphorius could end up being the Xianzhou Juming. As I discussed in that previous video, some may not be too keen to visit another Xianzhou ship. However, the Juming is by far the most unique of all the Xianzhou ships, and it would look and feel completely different compared to the Luofu. We could be invited to visit the Juming after our trip to Amphorius by Huiyan himself, which would allow the story of Phantilia versus the Alliance to continue. Anyways, that's pretty much it from my thoughts on version 2.5. There is a lot of potential for this update, and I really can't wait to see what happens between all these different groups. If you want more of my thoughts about Star Rail though, I recommend my videos on Mythos, Ouroboros, Adrilla, and the Xianzhou Juming. I would love to hear what ideas you all have for version 2.5 in the comments below as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.